The kingdom of Varelia was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that weighed heavy on a man's heart. King Cale wandered the marble halls of his palace, his steps echoing in the emptiness. He had spent years here, ruling over a realm of brilliant cities, advanced technology, and proud citizens, but none of it mattered to him now. None of it could fill the hollow that had existed since the day his daughter, Princess Lyra, had vanished. Lyra had been everything to him, his light, his joy, the last piece of himself that made life worth living. She was fearless, curious, and kind-hearted, the kind of princess who walked among her people not as royalty but as a friend. And then, on a day that was supposed to be bright and full of laughter, she had been taken. No one knew exactly what had happened. One moment she had been attending a ceremony in the palace courtyard, and the next a strange fleet of ships had descended from the sky. Aliens unlike any Varelians had attacked. The palace guards had fought valiantly, but they were overwhelmed. Amid the chaos, Lyra disappeared. Some said she had been captured. Others whispered that she had been lost in the void of space. The thought alone made Cale's chest tighten. Years had passed since that day, and still Cale could not stop thinking about her. He would pace the halls at night, replaying memories in his mind. The sound of her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she discovered something new, the way she had once hugged him and whispered, "Don't worry, father. Everything will be fine." All of it haunted him like ghosts. The court tried to help him, but even their advice felt empty. Ministers whispered of new alliances, technology upgrades, and defense strategies. They reminded Kyle that the kingdom needed him, that he could not allow grief to rule him. Yet what was a kingdom without his daughter? What was a crown without her smile to light the way? On one particularly lonely evening, Kyle walked to the balcony overlooking the city. The sky was dotted with ships coming and going, each one a reminder that life continued beyond his grief. Varelia's citizens moved about their day, unaware of the pain their king carried. Cale's hands rested on the balcony railing as he stared at the stars, wondering if Lyra was out there somewhere, waiting for him to find her. Far away, beyond the edges of known space, a human vessel glided silently through the dark. Captain Ethan Ward adjusted his controls, scanning the sector for any signs of life. Humans were known across many star systems for their resourcefulness, adaptability, and courage. Even some alien species that had once doubted them now respected the determination of humanity. Ethan, however, was focused only on the mission ahead. Reports had come in of a possible survivor pod drifting near a destroyed alien cruiser, one that had been lost years ago in a mysterious battle. No one had dared approach the area. Space was dangerous, filled with debris and unknown enemies. But Ethan's crew trusted his judgment. They knew he would find a way to succeed, no matter the odds. Meanwhile, Cale's scouts were beginning to detect unusual signals. A human ship had been spotted near the edge of their territory, a sight that brought a mixture of curiosity and caution to the alien court. Cale, still draped in his long ceremonial robes, could hardly believe what the sensors were reporting. He had lost hope of ever seeing Lyra again, yet now there was a small spark, a flicker of possibility. Back on Ethan's ship, the human captain narrowed his eyes at the readouts. "Life signs," he murmured. "Someone's out there." "Possibly alien." The crew leaned forward, holding their breath. After years of exploring unknown sectors, they had grown used to danger, but this was different. A life signal could mean an encounter with something completely unknown. It could also mean hope. Ethan made the decision without hesitation. "Set course for the signal," he said. "We're going in." As the ship moved closer to the source, the debris field of the destroyed cruiser came into view. Shattered hulls floated like broken monuments in the void, and torn panels glimmered under distant starlight. It was a haunting sight, a graveyard of a forgotten battle. Yet amidst the wreckage, a small pod floated, remarkably intact. Lyra's pod was barely functioning, powered by ancient alien technology that had somehow kept her alive. She floated inside, her eyes wide as the stars passed by her tiny viewport. She had survived countless dangers, from exposure to the cold emptiness of space, to attacks by scavengers and rogue ships. And yet here she was, still alive, clinging to life with stubborn determination. When Ethan's ship approached, he maneuvered carefully, avoiding debris and possible traps. He knew he couldn't just rush in. Any mistake could destroy the pod and the person inside. He activated the docking sequence and prepared the retrieval team. Every move had to be precise, every calculation exact. Inside the pod, Lyra stirred. She had seen ships before, of course, but never like this. The sleek lines, the bright lights, the humans moving with purpose, it was all so foreign. Fear and curiosity battled within her. Were these humans friends or foes? Could they be trusted? Ethan stepped into the airlock, moving cautiously. He had encountered aliens before, but he knew that trust was never immediate. One wrong move, one misread signal, and the situation could turn deadly. He activated the pod interface and spoke softly, hoping that sound alone would not frighten the occupant. "Hello," he said. "We're here to help." Lyra's eyes flicked toward the voice. It was strange, not like the formal tones of Virelia's own language, but there was something in the calmness that made her hesitate before reacting. She peered at the human, unsure of what to do, unsure whether to trust him. Ethan gestured gently. "It's safe. We won't hurt you." Slowly, Lyra moved, opening the pod hatch. Her movements were weak. Years of isolation and lack of proper nutrition had left her fragile. Ethan extended a hand, steady and patient, and she took it, letting him guide her onto the ship. The moment was quiet but electric. Two very different worlds had collided, and for the first time in years, Lyra felt a glimmer of hope. Someone had reached her. Someone cared enough to come. Back in Virelia, Cale paced the throne room, monitoring reports from scouts and sensors. He could not explain it, but something inside him stirred. Perhaps it was foolish, perhaps it was dangerous, but for the first time in years he allowed himself to hope. Perhaps Lyra was not lost forever. Perhaps she was still out there waiting to come home. And somewhere in the cold darkness of space, a human warrior carried a princess closer to the home she had long believed she would never see again. Hope, fragile and flickering, had returned to both of their lives. The hum of the human ship's engines filled the cabin as Princess Lyra leaned against a support rail, her eyes still wide from the shock of being rescued. Everything around her felt strange and unfamiliar. The sleek metal walls, the soft glow of control panels, and the quiet efficiency of the humans moving about. It was all unlike the crystalline beauty of Virelia. Yet despite her confusion and fear, she sensed one thing clearly. She was no longer alone. Captain Ethan Ward moved beside her, his expression calm but alert. "You're safe now," he said. "We'll get you somewhere you can rest properly. I promise." Lyra's voice came out barely above a whisper. I don't know your ways. I don't know if I can trust you." Ethan nodded, understanding. "I wouldn't expect you to," he said. "You've been through a lot, but I'm not here to harm you, only to help." She studied him carefully. There was something about his presence that felt different from the human she had heard about from Virelia's reports. He was not arrogant or reckless. He did not act out of ego or selfishness. Instead, there was a quiet strength in him, a sense of duty and care that spoke louder than words. For the first time in years, Lyra allowed herself to relax slightly. She trusted, cautiously, that this human was not like the rest. Ethan guided her to a small med bay aboard the ship. A soft bed had been prepared, and advanced medical scanners hummed gently as they examined her condition. Lyra's body was weak, her muscles atrophied from long months in stasis, but nothing appeared permanently damaged. It was a miracle she had survived at all. While the scanner worked, Ethan pulled up a holographic map of the sector. "There's a lot of debris out here," he explained. "Other ships that went missing during the same battle that took your ship. It's not safe to linger. We need to move, but we'll take a safe route back toward Virelia." Lyra studied the map, tracing the glowing dots with her finger. "I know these routes," she said softly. "I remember some of them. But it has been so long. I've been lost for years." Ethan gave a small smile. "We'll get you home, one step at a time." As the ship began its journey, Lyra could not help but notice the small ways humans adapted to challenges. Ethan's crew worked with precision, repairing minor damages on the fly, coordinating complex maneuvers, and communicating without hesitation. Even when faced with obstacles, they did not panic. They problem-solved. They acted. It was different from anything Lyra had seen in Virelia, where rules and protocols often slowed even the simplest actions. It made her wonder. Perhaps humans were underestimated by her people. Perhaps there was more to them than the stories she had been told. Their first real test came sooner than expected. As the ship passed through a dense debris field, sensors detected an unknown vessel approaching. Its design was jagged, aggressive, and clearly built for attack. Lyra's heart raced. "What is that?" she asked, fear creeping into her voice. Ethan's jaw tightened. Scavengers, he said. They feed on lost ships and survivors. They're not loyal to anyone. They'll take what they want and leave destruction behind. Lyra watched as the human crew prepared their defense systems. Shields activated, energy weapons hummed, and control panels flashed with calculations. She had seen ships in combat before, but nothing like this. The humans moved with coordination and speed, covering every angle. The scavenger ship fired first, sending a volley of energy bolts toward Ethan's vessel. Lyra ducked instinctively, her body still weak from years of confinement. But Ethan's crew was ready. They returned fire not recklessly, but with precision, disabling the enemy's weapons without unnecessary destruction. Ethan noticed Lyra watching from the control room. "Stay here," he ordered. "Don't come out until it's safe." Lyra nodded, but curiosity burned within her. She could not simply sit while danger approached. As the battle unfolded, she noticed something. The humans were not just strong, they were adaptable. When one weapon system was damaged, they rerouted power. When a path was blocked, they calculated a new route instantly. Every move was deliberate yet instinctive. Her admiration grew, and for the first time she felt a spark of hope. Perhaps humans were capable of more than her people realized. The scavenger ship, seeing its attacks failing, attempted to ram Ethan's vessel. In a daring maneuver, Ethan piloted the ship in a swift spiral, dodging debris while using the enemy's momentum against it. With a calculated strike, the scavenger ship was forced to retreat, damaged but not destroyed. The crew erupted in quiet relief. Lyra exhaled, realizing she had been holding her breath the entire time. You saved us," she said softly. Ethan shook his head. "We saved each other," he said. "You helped too, even if you didn't mean to. You stayed calm when others might have panicked. That's what matters." Lyra looked at him, unsure how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Not her father, not her tutors, not her guards. There was respect in his tone, but not pity. And for the first time she felt seen as a person, not just as a princess. Over the next several days, the journey continued. Lyra slowly regained strength walking along the ship's corridors, learning the humans' ways and even assisting in minor tasks. She discovered that their thinking was different yet efficient. Their creativity and resourcefulness were inspiring. One evening, as the ship traveled through the quiet vastness of space, Lyra and Ethan stood near a viewport. Stars streaked past, a reminder of the universe's infinite scale. Lyra spoke softly. "I never thought I would see Virelia again. I thought I was lost forever." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not lost anymore. And when we reach your home, you won't be alone. People will see you again. You'll see your father again." Lyra's eyes glistened. The thought of seeing Cale brought a mix of hope and fear. Would he recognize her after so many years? Would he still be angry, still mourning, still distant? Ethan seemed to sense her worry. "It's been a long time," he said. "But he'll know it's you, trust me. Humans might be strangers to him, but I think even your father will see what matters." As they spoke, a soft alarm sounded. The sensors detected another anomaly, smaller than the scavenger ships they had encountered but moving quickly. Ethan immediately ran to the controls, analyzing the readings. "Looks like a stray drone," he muttered. "Probably left over from the battle. Might just be curious, but we can't take chances." Lyra watched as he moved with calm precision, issuing commands and coordinating with his crew. She felt a strange admiration for this human warrior, whose courage and intelligence seemed limitless. He risked his life not for fame or reward, but because it was right. It was the kind of bravery that inspired legends. Hours passed, and the drone finally retreated after realizing the humans were prepared. Lyra breathed a sigh of relief. "You are remarkable," she said. Ethan shrugged lightly. "Humans can be that way. But it's not just me. We survive together because we trust each other and work as a team. That's how we get through impossible situations." Lyra thought about her own people, the Virelians, and realized that humans were indeed special. They were different from her people, not in technology, not in knowledge, but in spirit. In courage and quick thinking, and in the refusal to give up, humans were extraordinary. By the time the ship entered the outer sectors of Virelia, Lyra had a new understanding. Humans were not just visitors from another world. They were allies, protectors, and perhaps something more. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt ready to face it, especially with Ethan by her side. As the first glimpses of Virelia appeared on the horizon, Lyra's heart pounded. The kingdom she had dreamed of returning to was finally visible, and she was no longer alone. She took a deep breath, preparing herself for what would come next. The reunion with her father, the alien king, and the challenges of returning to the life she had once known. But one thing was clear: she had survived. She had learned and she had discovered that humans could be her greatest allies. And perhaps, just perhaps, they could also teach her people something about courage, resilience, and hope. The journey toward Virelia was long and filled with dangers that neither Lyra nor Ethan could have fully anticipated. Even as the stars stretched endlessly around them, there was a sense of urgency aboard the human ship. Every sensor ping, every blip on the radar demanded attention. Lyra watched as Ethan and his crew worked tirelessly, their hands moving quickly over controls, their eyes calculating every variable. "You have to be careful out here," Ethan said gently, noticing Lyra leaning over a console. "Space may look empty, but it's full of surprises. Debris, enemy scouts, rogue ships. Anything could happen." Lyra nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. She thought of her father, King Kale, and the empty halls of the palace. She wondered how he had survived these years of mourning. She had been lost for so long, and yet he had carried the weight of the kingdom on his shoulders. She had dreamed countless times of seeing him again, of running into his arms, and now that it was almost real, her heart raced with both hope and fear. Days passed, and the duo encountered multiple threats, each testing their patience and courage. On one occasion, a rogue alien patrol appeared on their sensors, a fleet of sharp, angular ships intent on capturing or destroying anything they found. Ethan's voice was calm but commanding as he issued orders. "Shields up. Evasive maneuvers, Sector 4. Lyra, stay behind cover. Keep your head down!" Lyra obeyed, but she couldn't just sit idle. She remembered the navigational patterns she had learned as a princess. "Captain," she called, her voice shaky but clear. "If we angle the ship's thrusters this way, we can create a blind spot in their scanners." Ethan glanced at her, impressed. "Good thinking. Make the adjustments." Working together, they executed the maneuver. The alien patrol lost track of their ship, unable to anticipate the unexpected tactic. Lyra's knowledge of alien technology, combined with Ethan's human ingenuity, had created a perfect solution. The patrol eventually retreated, and the humans cheered quietly in relief. Lyra's heart swelled. She had contributed. She had survived. She was more than a helpless princess. She was part of a team capable of facing impossible odds. As they continued their journey, Ethan noticed Lyra observing him and his crew closely. "You've been quiet," he said, smiling gently. "What are you thinking?" Lyra hesitated. I never realized humans could be so capable, so careful, yet bold. You face danger and think quickly. You don't panic." Ethan shrugged modestly. "It's what we do. We adapt, we survive, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." Lyra studied him, her admiration growing with each passing day. She thought about how different humans were from her own people. Not weaker, not less intelligent, but resilient in ways she had never imagined. They could rise to challenges, find solutions in moments of crisis, and act with a courage that inspired hope. Their bond deepened further when the ship encountered a collapsing asteroid field. Massive chunks of rock tumbled through space, colliding with one another and creating unpredictable hazards. The ship's autopilot struggled to adjust in time. Ethan moved swiftly, issuing commands. "Manual override. Shields to maximum. Lyra, help me with the thruster adjustments." Lyra's hands trembled as she manipulated the controls, following Ethan's precise instructions. The ship weaved between the massive asteroids, scraping past danger by mere seconds. Sparks flew along the hull and alarms blared, but they survived. When the danger finally passed, Ethan looked at her with a mixture of pride and relief. "You did well," he said. "You kept calm and followed directions. That made the difference." Lyra allowed herself a small smile. For the first time in years, she felt capable, strong, and alive. She realized that human courage was not just about fighting. It was about resilience, creativity, and calm in the face of danger. During the nights aboard the ship, Lyra and Ethan would sit near the viewport watching the stars streak by. It was quiet, peaceful, and yet filled with the promise of what lay ahead. Lyra began to open up about her life before the disappearance, sharing stories of Virelia, her father, and the lessons she had learned from her people. Ethan listened carefully, his respect for her growing. "Your people are remarkable," he said. "You've survived a situation that would have broken most. You have courage, resourcefulness, and wisdom beyond your years." Lyra looked down, blushing slightly. "I never thought of it that way. I only thought I was lost, alone, afraid." "Survival doesn't mean you are alone," Ethan replied. "It means you find strength when you have no choice but to. And sometimes you find allies in unexpected places." Their journey was not just physical, it was emotional. Lyra began to understand the human's way of facing the unknown. They did not fear failure. They learned from it. They did not give up when the odds were against them. They improvised. And slowly she realized that she too could adopt some of this resilience. One day, as they neared Virelia's outer sectors, the sensors picked up a faint, distant signal. An old distress beacon similar to the one that had led Ethan to her in the first place. "Another pod?" Lyra wondered aloud. Ethan analyzed the readings. "Could be survivors," he said cautiously. "Or could be a trap. We need to approach carefully." Lyra's heart raced. She remembered her own time trapped alone and how desperate she had felt. "We can't just leave it," she said. "Someone might be in trouble." Ethan nodded. "I agree. We'll investigate. But stay close." As they approached the source, they found a small, damaged ship caught in an asteroid field. Inside, another alien life form, weaker but alive, struggled to maintain consciousness. Lyra felt a pang of empathy, remembering her own ordeal. "We have to help them," she said. Working together, Lyra and Ethan coordinated the rescue. Lyra used her knowledge of alien systems to stabilize the pod, while Ethan maneuvered the human ship with precision to avoid collisions. The operation was tense, nerve-wracking, and dangerous, but they succeeded. The rescued alien looked at Lyra with wide eyes, recognition dawning. "Princess?" they whispered weakly. Lyra nodded, tears welling up. She had saved someone as she had once been saved. Ethan watched quietly, pride shining in his eyes. "You're becoming a hero," he said softly. "Not because you're a princess, but because you choose to act when it matters." Lyra smiled faintly. It was a different kind of strength from anything she had known. It was not just survival. It was courage, compassion, and determination. Finally, after weeks of travel, navigating dangers and building trust, Virelia's glittering lights appeared on the horizon. The capital city gleamed like a jewel beneath the stars, a reminder of home, of family, and of the life she had thought was lost forever. Lyra's heart pounded. She turned to Ethan. This is it. We're almost home." Ethan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Almost. And once we arrive, we'll face whatever comes together. You're not alone anymore." Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the distant city. She felt a mixture of excitement, fear, and hope. Her father, the kingdom, and her people, everything she had longed for was finally within reach. But she knew that the journey was not over. The challenges ahead would test her courage once more. As the ship descended toward Virelia's orbit, Lyra reflected on everything she had learned. Humans were not just allies. They were examples of resilience, ingenuity, and bravery. They could rise above impossible odds, adapt in moments of crisis, and face danger with calm determination. She realized that these qualities were something her people could learn from, and perhaps something she could bring back to Virelia. And so, with the city growing closer, Lyra prepared herself for the next step, returning to her father, reclaiming her place in the kingdom, and introducing a human warrior whose courage had changed her life forever. The journey home had been long and treacherous, but it had taught her more than survival. It had shown her hope, trust, and the power of human courage, a power that would soon shape the future of Virelia itself. The human ship descended through Virelia's atmosphere, slicing through clouds with practiced precision. Princess Lyra stood near the viewport, her heart racing. After years lost in space, after years of survival and uncertainty, she could finally see her home. The city glimmered below like a constellation come alive, towers and spires gleaming under the light of Virelia's twin suns. "Almost there," Ethan said quietly, standing beside her. "Prepare yourself. This will be emotional." Lyra nodded, though her stomach twisted with nerves. She had imagined this moment countless times, but imagining it and living it were entirely different. Questions swirled in her mind. Would her father recognize her? Would he forgive the years she had been gone, even though she had not chosen to leave? And what would the court say about the human who had brought her home? Ethan guided the ship to a landing platform near the palace gates. The crew worked efficiently, securing the vessel and preparing for their exit. Lyra took a deep breath, adjusting the folds of her ceremonial tunic, a gift from Virelia's old attendants kept in her emergency pod. It was simple but elegant, and it reminded her of her life before the darkness. When the hatch opened, Lyra stepped onto solid ground for the first time in years. The warm sunlight and familiar air filled her senses. She glanced toward the palace, and there he was, King Cale. His regal figure stood on the steps, a long cloak flowing behind him. Time had etched lines of grief and age into his face, but the moment he spotted her, the years of sorrow seemed to vanish. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice cracking. Lyra ran, her legs trembling from weakness but driven by pure emotion. She leapt into his arms, feeling the strength and warmth of her father for the first time in years. Tears streamed down both their faces, and for a long moment the world seemed to stand still. "My daughter, you've returned to me," Cale said, holding her tightly. "I thought I had lost you forever. I was lost. But I'm here now," Lyra replied, her voice shaking. "Thanks to him." She gestured toward Ethan, who approached cautiously, hands raised slightly in respect. The court murmured, their eyes fixed on the human warrior. Whispers of suspicion mixed with awe as they studied him. Tall, calm, and clearly skilled. He had brought the princess home, a feat none of their own warriors had accomplished. Cale stepped back slightly, studying Ethan with a mixture of caution and curiosity. "And you are?" he asked. "Captain Ethan Ward, Your Majesty," Ethan said, bowing slightly. "I am human. I come from beyond the stars, from a world called Earth. I rescued your daughter and ensured her safe return to Virelia." The king's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and contemplation. Humans were rarely so involved in Virelia's affairs, and yet here was one who had proven not just skill, but loyalty and courage. He looked at his daughter, then back at Ethan, and something unspoken passed between them, a silent recognition of the bravery it took to cross the vast void of space to save a life. Lyra guided Ethan closer. "Father, he saved me. Without him, I would not be here." Kyle's eyes softened. "I see," he said quietly. He studied Ethan for a long moment, then nodded. "You have my gratitude. You have done what few could achieve. You have my respect." The court began to relax, though some remained wary. Virelians were proud, and accepting a human into their inner circle was not simple. Yet even they could not deny the facts. Lyra was home, and a human had been the key. Lyra turned to Ethan. "We need to explain everything," she said. "The dangers, the journey, the reason I survived. My people need to know the truth." Ethan nodded. "I will tell only what matters," he replied. "The rest, we leave to your discretion." The next hours were a mixture of storytelling, questions, and amazement. Lyra described her survival, the rogue patrols, the collapsing asteroid field, and the resilience she had discovered in herself. She praised Ethan's bravery and intelligence, emphasizing how his human ingenuity had saved her life. Cale listened intently. His pride in his daughter mingled with a new appreciation for humans. He realized that perhaps his people had underestimated them. Humans were not just outsiders, they were capable of heroism, ingenuity, and courage that rivaled even the best of Virelia's warriors. By the evening, the palace had quieted, the initial shock settling into cautious acceptance. Lyra was exhausted but happy. She had returned home, and for the first time in years she felt complete. Ethan remained by her side, not as an intruder but as an ally. He had proven himself through actions, not words, and that had earned the respect of both the princess and the king. Cale looked at Ethan again. "Humans are different from what I expected. Perhaps there is much we can learn from them." Ethan smiled slightly. "Perhaps, but I have learned much from Virelia as well. Courage, honor, resilience. Your people are remarkable." Lyra watched them, realizing that this meeting of worlds was more than a reunion. It was the beginning of a new alliance. And though challenges remained, she felt a quiet certainty that together, humans and Virelians could face whatever the universe held. The following days were filled with preparations. Lyra reunited with her old friends, advisors, and teachers. sharing stories of survival and the lessons she had learned from humans. Her people listened in awe, marveling at how a human warrior had navigated dangers they had long feared, and how Lyra herself had grown stronger and wiser in the process. King Kale called a council meeting, inviting Ethan to attend as a guest of honor. It was unprecedented for a human to enter Virelia's inner council, and many officials whispered their doubts. Yet Kale's presence, firm and authoritative, silenced all objections. "You have witnessed courage and skill beyond our understanding," Kale addressed the council. "This human warrior, Ethan Ward, has saved my daughter and brought her home. He has shown us that allies can come from unexpected places, and that cooperation across worlds can be our greatest strength." The council members studied Ethan carefully, seeing the truth in Kale's words. Here was a human calm and intelligent, capable of great courage and willing to protect a life that was not his own. Slowly, respect replaced suspicion. Lyra stood beside her father, her voice strong. "Humans are not our enemies," she said. "They are resourceful, brave, and loyal. We can learn from them, and together we can face dangers that neither of our worlds could withstand alone." Ethan nodded, humbled by her words. "I did what any human would do," he said. "But I agree, we are stronger together. We survive better when we cooperate, when we trust each other." The council deliberated for hours, but the decision was clear. Virelia would open channels of communication and alliance with humanity. Trade routes, technology exchanges, and joint exploration missions were proposed. It was a new era, born from courage and survival, and led by a princess who had seen the worst of space and lived to tell the tale. Lyra spent time walking through the city with Ethan, showing him the beauty of her home. Citizens greeted her warmly, whispers of her survival spreading like wildfire. Everywhere they went, Ethan was met with curiosity and admiration. He never sought attention, but the respect was unavoidable. Humans, it seemed, could earn trust with action rather than titles. One evening, Lyra and Ethan stood atop a palace balcony, looking out over the city. The twin suns dipped toward the horizon, casting gold and amber light across the towers and spires. "I never imagined it would be like this," Lyra said softly, "that I would return and see everything I once knew, and yet see it anew with hope and possibility." Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady. "You survived when so many would not have. You learned strength, courage, and resilience, and now you bring that to your people. That is extraordinary, Lyra." Lyra smiled. She had survived, she had learned, and she had grown. Humans had taught her about courage and ingenuity, but her own people had taught her resilience, loyalty, and heart. Together, these lessons created a new path for Virelia. The next weeks were filled with planning and preparation. Joint missions were organized, human and Virelian teams working side by side to explore uncharted space, protect trade routes, and share knowledge. The alliance was more than practical. It was symbolic, a testament to what could be achieved when different worlds respected and learned from each other. King Kale watched from the palace, pride swelling in his chest. His daughter had returned stronger than ever. Humans had proven themselves as allies, capable of great courage and ingenuity, and together, the future looked brighter than it had in decades. Lyra and Ethan led a new expedition, hand in hand, a symbol of unity. Citizens cheered as the ships lifted into the sky, human and Virelian banners flying together. The adventure that had begun with fear, danger, and survival now blossomed into hope, cooperation, and a vision for a stronger future. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Lyra whispered softly, "We are ready." Ethan smiled. "Yes, together we are ready for anything." And with that they soared into the unknown, their courage, ingenuity, and unity lighting the way for the generations to come.